Blacks commit more crimes than whites do. They commit more ardens, they commit more things. For example, blacks are 13% of the population and they commit 58% of us. That's not a war on drugs, that's a culture problem. Why are so many blacks committing murders outside of their population?
Hello my viewers and welcome back to my channel. Now today we tackle a pressing issue: racial stereotypes and the criminal justice system. Now we debunk the narrative that black people commit more crimes than palm-colored people. They are disproportionately represented in prisons. But what's the truth behind these statistics? Now claims by Charlie Kirk and others have sparked controversy, citing misleading numbers and perpetrating harmful stereotypes. However, advocates like Amy Chen challenge these narratives, revealing startling facts that black people are 7.5 times more likely to be falsely accused and convicted, and they make up 12.6% of the population, but 53% of exonerations. Moreover, Amy Chen highlights the historical context often ignored. European Americans have committed vastly disproportionate crimes against humanity, enslaving and oppressing people of the global majority by the millions and destroying communities created by black and people of color. So join me as we dissect the myths and realities of racial disparities in the U.S. criminal justice systems. Take a look at the videos. I will be right back.
So according to the Bureau of Prison Statistics, 38.3% of our current inmate population is black, but according to the 2020 census data, only 12.2% of our national population is black. So if you don't believe in white privilege, how do you explain this disparity?
Why do people go to jail?
Why are black people in jail at higher rates than white people?
That's the question, right? Maybe because they commit more crimes than white people.
But that's not true. According to the Uniform Crime Report for 2019, black or African American individuals committed only about 1 million crimes, while white people committed about 4 million crimes.
That's proportion.
How about the proportion?
There's a lot more white people than black people in the United States.
It's a 60% white country and a 14% black country. So you just proved my point.
You switch from proportion to raw numbers.
That's right.
Black people only make up 13% of the population, but they commit 40% of all homicides and 60% of all violent crime.
Why do blacks have a broken family versus a nuclear family, and does that translate to higher rates of crime?
Why is it that blacks don't have parents, though? Why?
Good question. We subsidize single motherhood in this country through the federal government of the United States. Great question.
This idea that black people have to earn their way out of racism is completely backwards. So I understand you as saying that if, as the result of the actions of some people, a group has acquired the reputation for harming other people, then the negative attitudes and treatment the entire group receives is understandable and justified. And what's more, if that group wants those negative attitudes and treatments to change, they have to do better. I highly suggest that you re-examine this belief in light of the fact that at the point at which Europeans labeled black people black, and by extension labeled themselves white, they are the ones who proceeded to loot and grape their way around 84% of the world for centuries. Because I don't think you feel that it would justify if people of the global majority were to treat white people the way that white people have treated black people, and maybe consider yourself lucky that we don't. Now, with respect to these black crime rates that people like you so love to inflate, if racism were to cease to exist today, those crime rates would automatically and instantly drop, because we wouldn't have innocent black people being arrested and incarcerated for nothing, and we wouldn't have black people being arrested and incarcerated for infractions that white people get away with all the time. But also, if you systematically oppress a group of people for centuries, it will create negative behaviors, and it shows the infinite grace of black people that it hasn't created more. And what's more, the people that it harms the most are black people themselves. So if you want these crime rates to drop, it is racism that has to cease to exist first. What's fact is that black people in the United States don't have the caucasity to define crime for everybody else while excluding themselves. What's fact is that European Americans have committed a vastly disproportionate amount of crime against humanity in the United States. European Americans have unalived and SA'd people of the global majority by the millions. European Americans have destroyed communities created by people of the global majority in the United States by the thousands. And until that truth is acknowledged and reconciled, there will be no excuses. And the fact that black people are 7.5 times more likely to be falsely accused and convicted of a crime than white people, and that black people make up 12.6% of the population, but 53% of the exonerations for unaliving, is an everyone problem that's very telling. How about we call out that criminal justice problem?
Oh, racists love this statistic, and we're going to talk about it. But first, fellow white people, let me ask you this. Let's say you're charged with a crime, and when you go to court, the only white person there is you. The judge is black, prosecutor's black, the jury's black. Can you honestly say that you believe that you would receive a fair and unbiased trial, especially if the victim of the crime was also black? To you, is that a jury of your peers? Because that's a reality that most black Americans face every day. In fact, if a black man and a white man are convicted of the same crime and have similar criminal histories, on average, the black man will receive a 19.1% longer sentence. Oh, and then don't forget exonerations for being wrongfully convicted, because black people make up 50% of those, for 60% for assault and 55% for drug possession or sale. Well, and when they are exonerated, it on average takes longer for a black person to be released than a white person. So when you take that data and factor in that 52% represents arrests for violent crimes, not convictions, seems to indicate that black people don't commit all those crimes, but our system sure likes to assume they do.
Now, when we take a look at the harmful narrative perpetrated by some palm-color individuals, we see the myth that black people are inherently more criminal or violent. Now, this stereotype has been used to justify systemic racism, mass incarceration, and police brutality. But the truth tells a different story. Just like we have heard from some of the videos, data from the Bureau of Justice Statistics and the NAACP reveals that black people are 7.5 times more likely to be falsely accused and convicted. They make up 12.6% of the population, but 53% of exonerations. And palm-color people commit the majority of crimes, including violent offenses. Now, the Sentencing Project reports that black people are 3.5 times more likely to be arrested and imprisoned. Racial disparities persist even when controlling for crime rates. Now, these statistics expose the myth for what it is, a thinly veiled attempt to justify racial oppression. Now, historical context is crucial. European Americans have committed heinous crimes against humanity, enslaving and oppressing millions. Systemic racism has perpetuated inequality and limited access to education, employment, and healthcare. We must recognize that confirmation bias fuels these harmful stereotypes, and media representation often perpetuates negative portrayals of black people. Now, according to research, black people are 13.6% of the American population, but 53% of the 3,200 exonerations listed in the National Registry of Exonerations. Judging from exonerations, innocent black Americans are 7 times more likely than palm-color Americans to be falsely convicted of serious crimes. Now, we see this racial disparity in varying degrees. For all major crime categories except white-collar crime, this report examines racial disparities in the 3 types of crime that produce the largest numbers of exonerations: unaliving, S-assault, and D crimes. Now, for both unaliving and S-assault, there are preliminary investigative issues that increase the number of innocent black suspects. For unaliving, the high H-side rate in the black community. For rape, the difficulty of cross-racial eyewitness identification. For both crimes, misconduct, discrimination, and racism amplify these initial racial discrepancies. For D crimes, the preliminary sorting that increased the number of convictions of innocent black suspects is racial profiling. In addition, the registry lists 17 group exonerations, including 2,975 additional wrongfully convicted defendants, many of whom were deliberately framed and convicted of fabricated D crimes and in large-scale police scandals. The overwhelming majority are black. Now, innocent black people are about 7.5 times more likely to be convicted of unaliving than innocent palm-color people. That applies equally to those who are sentenced to unaliving and those who are not. A major cause of this disparity is the high H-side rate in the black community, a tragedy that unalives many black people and sends many others to prison. Like the families of those who are unalived, innocent defendants who are falsely convicted are victims who are deeply harmed by unalivings committed by others. In addition, black people who are convicted of unaliving are about 80% more likely to be innocent than other convicted unalivers. Part of that disparity is tied to the race of the victims. About 13% of unalivers by black people have palm-color victims, but twice as many, 26% of innocent black unalived exonerees were convicted of unaliving palm-color people. Now, the convictions that led to unaliving exonerations with black defendants were almost 50% more likely to include misconduct by police officers than those with palm-color defendants. In addition, on average, black unaliving exonerees spent 3 years longer in prison before release than palm-color unaliving exonerees. Now, the number of unaliving exonerations has been increasing, and many of the recent exonerees are black unaliving defendants who spent decades in prison. Most of these long-serving black unaliving defendants are exonerated by a handful of big city prosecutorial conviction integrity units. More are likely on the way. Now, many of the convictions of black unaliving exonerees were influenced by racial discrimination, from unconscious bias and institutional discrimination to explicit racism. most innocent defendants who are convicted of crimes are not exonerated. Judging from the rate of forced conviction among unaliving sentences, at least several thousand defendants have been falsely convicted of unaliving in America in the past 40 years. Judging from the exonerations that have occurred, more than half of them were black. Now, Amy Chen's powerful words cut through the noise, exposing the harsh realities of racial injustice in the U.S. Her assertions are backed by stark statistics and historical context, rendering them indisputable. Her first point that black people are 7.5 times more likely to be falsely accused and convicted is a damning indictment of the justice system. Now, this staggering disparity underscores the systemic racism embedded within law enforcement and judicial processes. Her second statement that black people make up 12.6% of the population, but 53% of exonerations, further highlights the flaws in the system. It demonstrates how mistaken identities, coerced confessions, and prosecutorial misconduct disproportionately affect black individuals. Her emphasis on European Americans' historical crimes against humanity is also crucial. The legacy of slavery, segregation, and oppression has created lasting social and economic disparities, and acknowledging this painful past is essential. Her critique of palm color privilege and its role in defining crime is spot on. By ignoring their own history of violence and oppression, palm color Americans perpetuate harmful stereotypes and shift the focus away from systemic issues. We have finally come to the end of the video, but what do my viewers have to say? Share your thoughts, your views, your contributions as well in the comment section. Thank you for watching, and see you in my next video as I bring you another interesting video.